One of the most popular tools for web application testing is the Burp Suite. And there are two versions of Burp, the community or free edition and a professional version that is actually not free. Now in this lesson, we will use the community edition. Now the community edition comes pre-installed in Kali Linux and in Parrot Linux and many other distributions for penetration testing. However, you can actually download it from the website that I'm showing in the screen and install it in other operating systems like Windows, Mac OS X, or any other Linux distribution. Burp comes as an executable and it also uses the Java runtime environment. Now, once you launch Burp, you have to configure your browser to point to it. So in my example here, I'm actually running a Parrot Linux. I wanted to actually change gears a little bit and go from Kali and show you a little bit of Parrot Linux in here. But again, Burp actually comes pre-installed. I'm launching Firefox and I'm going to the preferences. And probably the easiest way for you to find how you configure a network proxy is just by typing proxy in the find in preferences, right? Once you do that, you will see this network proxy settings. You click on settings, and then in there, you actually click on manual proxy configuration. You specify your loopback IP address, which is 127.0.0.1. In this case, I'm actually going to use this proxy for all protocols, and I'm going to use the port that is on by default in Burp. That is the port 8080. So once I actually do that, all the traffic between my browser and the web server will be actually captured by the proxy, and I actually have to step it through, right? Now, some users just use Burp to perform a quick and easy vulnerability scan of their application. Now, this is often referred to as Burp as a point and click scanner. So instead of a camera, in this case, it's actually a scanner. Now here, I'm actually not going to show you how to be a script kiddie. I want to deep dive a little bit more, and I will guide you on how to actually use the scanner a little bit more effectively, right? So you can be more agile and more effective in your penetration testing engagement. Now the Burp documentation has a great high-level overview of the workflow. You can click on each of the area of the diagram and you can obtain more detail, right? So the workflow is actually divided in three major areas or phases: the recon and analysis phase, the tool configuration area, and the vulnerability detection and exploitation. Now the proxy tool is one of the best features of Burp, but it is not the only one. And a lot of people actually just use this as a proxy only, but there's a lot more things that you can actually do with the tool. Now the proxy does allow you to map the application by following links, submitting forms, stepping through multi-step processes, and many other tasks, right? But this process will populate the proxy history and the target sitemap with all the content that you actually requested, and you can actually do other things with it after you intercept that communication. Now you can also use Burp to perform automated mapping. This is actually often called automatic spidering, right? And we went over what is spidering, earlier in this course. So this is actually not new to you, right? But you can actually do a lot of custom application discovery using the intruder. And also the intruder allows you to cycle through a list of common files and directories and identify potential vulnerabilities. It can be used for things like brute force attacks and enumeration of directories. So let's actually take a look at an example. Now in this example, I'm actually using the Mutilidae, and I can never pronounce that name, but it's a OWASP, one of the OWASP projects that has a vulnerable application, right? This is the second version, and you can actually download this from the link that I'm actually showing in the screen here. Now, one thing in here is actually, as I clicked through the application, you will see that Burp, of course, intercepts all that communication, right? So once you actually get a good request for a page that does assist, right? In this case, it's actually the index page. You can actually send that to the repeater. And the repeater allows you to send the request, and also actually take a look at the details of each of the requests, like the ROP request, the parameters, the headers, hexadecimal values of that request. And also, once you send that, you actually can see the response coming back from the web server. You can actually do a raw header, hexadecimal, HTML, and even render the page so it will be a little bit more user friendly, right? So again, once you actually have that response back, you can actually send that to the comparer. And that is a tool within Burp that allows you to compare different responses, that are coming back from the web server. Now, if you go back to the repeater, in this case, I'm actually just gonna put just a fake, a non-assistant page that you see in there that is actually called Home Omar 123. Now, but if you actually look very closely, even before that, so let me actually go back into that, and if you look in there, you see the index.php, which is actually the PHP file, the actual page, and it's actually rendering different other pages from that PHP code. And in this case, the actual true page was home.php. So what I want to actually do eventually is do a brute force against that good request or that good page that I know that it exists. I'm gonna change the parameters actually using many different arguments and different words and special characters and everything to actually find any pages that potentially are not showing, that are hidden, and that may actually contain tons of other information like configuration details and some other some other details that may actually help you do the application mapping and the penetration test, right? Now, going back into here, I'm actually sending this to the server with the page home Omar 123. I know that it doesn't exist, so what is actually coming back is a 404, right? And if you actually see the render in there, it says actually page not found, validation error 404, page not found. And take a look at that, because I'm gonna actually use that at a later point to verify or to do verification of the information that's actually coming back from the web server once we actually try to automate the brute forcing of the enumerations of all those pages, right? Now, if I actually right click on that and I send that to the comparer again, now I have two different pages in there, or two different responses, right? A good response and a bad response. So actually, once you actually see them in there, so in the top, I have the first one. On the bottom, I have the second one. I click on compare words, and you can actually do byte-to-byte comparison or words comparison. So let's actually do words because it's a little bit more human readable. And as you see, there are different the two responses actually coming back, and there's many differences, right? From the content length to, of course, the time that it actually took place. But if you see in the legend, in here, actually it shows you in a color-coded what actually probably was modified or even deleted, right? So what is actually the difference between the two responses, which is extremely handy, especially whenever you're actually doing this type of work and going into a little bit more deep on how the application is behaving and responding back to you. So a very, very, very handy tool, and definitely become familiar with it so you can do a little bit more in-depth studies of a page, right? Now, we also have the intruder, right, that I mentioned to you before, and that's the tool that we're actually going to be using in a few minutes. But let's actually go back to the repeater, and in this case, I'm actually going to go actually back to the proxy and the HTTP history, and I'm going to send that back to the repeater so I can get that good home.php request, right? Not the error or the fake page that I actually sent before. But in this case, once I actually click on go, it actually sends, it gets that response back from the web server, and I'm going to send that now to the intruder. So instead of a comparer, I'm going to send this to the intruder. So I'm right-clicking in there and selecting send to intruder. You can also do control and the I letter, right? But if I do that, and then let's actually go to the intruder, and in there you have different options. You actually have the target, which in this case is already pre-populated because it was already already recognized that it's 10.1.1.13 on port 88. You also have the positions, and in there you actually see the different positions of where the payload is actually inserted into the base request. So these are things that you can actually manipulate. So in there you see actually home, you see other arguments in there, you see even the PHP session ID that you can manipulate, show hints, and some other ones. In this case, I'm going to only mess with the home PHP because what I'm going to try to do is enumerate any hidden page that may assist in the web server. So I'm going to click on clear, and then I'm going to add the home, just the word home, not .php, because that's the only thing that I'm going to be changing is the word and leaving the .php in the URL, and then adding that into the payload position. Now in my example, I'm going to use a word list that it comes with a tool called Fuzz Database. And in this case, actually, this is pre-installed in Parrot, but you can actually use many word lists in Kali Linux, in Parrot, download them from the internet and everything that can allow you to enumerate these pages. So in this case, I'm actually using the locate fuzzDB command just so I can find the directory. And if you see in there, actually, I found the directory that those word lists assist. And then I'm going to using here the word list skipfish.fuzz.text. So it's actually from Skipfish, but it has tons and tons and tons of different words, as you can see in here, that actually I can use to enumerate different files and different structures of a website, right? So like admin pages, hidden HTTP pages, and so on. Now, if I go back to Burp and you go to the payloads, you actually see that it allows you to select from different payload types, from runtime files to custom iterators to recursive grep, illegal Unicodes, and many, many others, right? So in my example, I'm actually just going to do a simple list, and I'm going to load that list from the directory that I specified before, and you see in there the word list skipfish file. So once I actually load that, you see that there's a lot of different words already pre-populated to the Burp Suite, right? Now, but one more thing that I want to do, and to make sure that I understand what are the good and the bad responses actually coming back. So what are the pages that do assist and the ones that do not assist, is actually I'm going to go to the options of the intruder, and under grep match, and you can actually do a grep extract to extract useful information from responses into the attack results table. But what I'm going to do here is actually I'm going to use the grep match to see if the response coming back is actually a good one or not. So what I'm doing in here is actually I'm going to remove everything that is there. So they have a whole bunch of pre-install or pre-configure grep matches. So I'm going to clear the list, and then I'm going to type my own. And remember that whenever we went to that non-assistant page, I saw that there was a 404 page not found message coming actually back from the page, right? So now I know that that web server specifically sends that message back. Of course, it's a 404, but with a specific syntax, right? So yes, you can actually just put 404 here and be done with it. I want to actually be a little bit more precise and put 404 page not found. And you can actually do regular expression as well, right? So you can be as creative as possible. And of course, this is a simple example, so I'm going to use the 404 page not found. And then I'm going to launch the attack. Now, you're going to get this error message because I'm actually using the community or the free edition, right? So it can be extremely slow, right? So they actually throttle the different attack exchanges that it sends to the web server. So, just bypassing this, of course, this is a free edition. But for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let it run for a little bit. And I'm actually, already finding some useful information here. So I'm gonna stop the intruder or pause it for a second. And as you actually can see, it found a whole bunch of pages, of course, that don't exist. And that's where you see the 404 page not found and on those. But it actually found others that do exist, like the .htaccess and .htpassword files, right? And that one, of course, can give you tons of additional information that is not present there by default or shown by the web server by default. So you can actually see the request as I'm actually showing in here, and you can also see the response, right? So the raw response, the headers, the hexadecimal in HTML, and also render that response. And as you can see, actually, it has a whole bunch of configuration information about the website itself and the web server that it should not be displayed, right? So this should definitely not be, accessible in a production environment. As you can see, Burp can be extremely useful in a web application penetration testing engagement, and definitely is a lot more than just a proxy, right? So there are a whole bunch of other tweaks, of course, you can do. The sky's the limit whenever it comes to doing modification. We're actually going to be using Burp throughout the course. So on and off, you're actually going to be seeing examples actually using this tool, so you can be an expert by the time that you actually finish this course.